LFTs and 73 PCRs. We now have 90 fewer than yesterday's total of 552. So downward, ever downward seems the trajectory. 7 people are in Nobles. 1 person is in ICU with COVID at the moment. And from the vaccination dashboard, 69,145 first doses have been administered, 66,103 second doses, 48,004 boosters, and 1,606 third doses have been administered, a grand total of 184,858 total vaccinations, and Manxcare is holding 8,476 shots of vaccine in stock at the moment. And on Mannin line today is the Education, Sport and Culture Minister, Julie Edge. MHK is with us. Good afternoon, Faster Mai.
Afternoon, Andy.
Now, just first things first, have you had COVID?
I have. Beginning of December, I had obviously the Delta variant, and you think you're okay, but it does hit you a few days in. And certainly I still feel that it hasn't left me fully. So
Can you taste things now?
Not like I used to. No, I certainly can't. My smell certainly and taste went smell first. But now I don't even enjoy a cup of tea, which I used to. So hopefully that will come back.
I mean, psychologically, how did you feel when you got it?
I was surprised, really.
Politicians always think they're kind of,
Yeah, no. Obviously, we'd been to an event. My partner caught it first, and then I was actually 11 days after him catching it. So, but I did lock him away. So I did all I could to avoid it. But
because I mean, there's a feeling sometimes when people think, it won't happen to me, and then it does, and suddenly all this comes into focus because you've been dealing with it as a politician in Comyn and previously, on the backbenchers, and suddenly it hits and you've got it.
Yes, and to be honest, it does help you focus. You've used the word focus. It does help you focus, and you understand what people have actually been through. Fortunately, I wasn't too ill. However, it did hit me in different ways to the standard list. So, and obviously, if you've got underlying health conditions, I can completely understand and sympathise with everybody. But I can now speak up as somebody that's had COVID and understand the effects and impacts on you, your family, and also long COVID. I'm 8 weeks now, and I still don't feel 100%.
Do you think we're on the way out of it as a nation?
I hope so. However, I am aware there's a new variant in Denmark, and I think it has been identified in the UK, and it is possibly causing hospitalisations, but nothing serious. So I'm hoping that we can all get back to normal, but we've all got to be vigilant, and it is still there, isn't it? And hopefully, as the variants come along, they are weakening.
Has it affected school children psychologically, do you think?
Certainly, the reports are that there are reports out there. I think our job now is to make sure that we can provide the best support to make sure that all of the students in our schools have the best opportunities coming out of COVID, and obviously ensuring that their education is there for them to have a future with regards to how it's impacted. Some people talk about anxiety. It used to really frustrate me when I was on the back benches hearing politicians talking about anxiety. We need to be focused on the positive ways out of COVID and how we're going to support students going forward, is my view. And obviously the support, third sector support. We have psychologists working in the department, and we will be doing a wellbeing, wellness, welfare, so I suppose wellness survey in the next few months.
If you want to get in touch with Julie Edge, call 66 13 68. Text 166 177, or you can email studio@maxradio.com. First of all, there's a message in from John. Swimming pools. What is it with the Department of Education and swimming pools? Obviously, we got the NSC. I won't mention the word. But when children with special requirements who use the pool at Glencuttery, when will they get their facilities back? 2 years and counting.
Yes, I was really disappointed to hear about this. And obviously, in my time when I was at Balakamine, I used to manage the swimming pool at Balakamine, and I know that's been shut for nearly 2 years as well. I have actually chased again this morning about Glencrutchery because one of the North Douglas MHKs is concerned about it. I understand that the item that we're waiting for is the treatment equipment for the water. So I have chased that with Minister Crookall again this morning because obviously all of the maintenance is carried out by the Department of Infrastructure. So,
And what's the problem with Balakamine's pool?
Well, I was aware that, and obviously, when I was on the backbench, I was asking questions that there was a new liner put into the pool, which I think was resin or fiberglass based, and it wasn't successful. So the works are having to be carried out again. And, I will be pushing to ensure those works are carried out because it's an important part of the curriculum, and Balakamine is quite restricted on what facilities it has already. So.
Yeah. Well, you ran Balakamine, as you say, as bursar, so you were in charge of signing cheques, I suppose it was in those days. I mean, Bala never had a problem running the pool before. What's gone wrong?
So when I was there and when I left, actually, Andy, I left all the paperwork and I said the pool liner needs replacing, it's due, and also the structural report was required for the pool. I left all the paperwork there, so I am really disappointed. It's always had a rubber pool liner. It does take some work. You have to take a few tiles off and then they put the rubber liner in. Don't know why that didn't happen and they were chosen to go with something else, but hopefully we'll have that facility back for everybody to use.
But it's bit by bit. If you chip little things away, it's almost like a swimming pool. You take a few tiles out, eventually the pool can't be used. And we've got pools around. I mean, Castle Rushen High School, the Castle Rushen pool is deteriorating. It's the oldest pool, I think, on the Isle of Man, and that's deteriorating. Will that come under the rebuilding of Castle Rushen High School, or will it be a separate thing?
So the pool at Castletown is run by a separate board.
Sure.
The involvement from the department is that we give a subvention for the operation of the pool. Obviously, we've asked the Southern Board to come forward with a structural report, which we're still waiting for. It's certainly not within the plans of Castle Rushen when I took over. And, I think we actually need to do a review of all of our pools on the island and make sure that we're doing the right thing going forward for the people of the island and that we have the right capacity of swimming pools.
Yeah. Is it true? The NSC is paid for by taxpayers. Is that right? And the other regional pools are paid for out of rates. Is that right?
Well, no, there's an element of rateal income that goes towards the pools. So I think it's in most of the areas and the boards, it's been 2.5%. Obviously, one of the boards, the Southern Board, have been proactive and they want to come forward and increase that rate. It's for their community and it's on their doorstep. Right. So I suppose it is correct that the taxes pay for the NSC. However, these community facilities, I think, do also need looking at.
And is it straightforward whereby the commissioners can just put the rates up and get, because, if you're a Peel rate payer, I know several Peel rate payers who look every year and it says swimming pool, so there's a contribution at a rate. Can the commissioners just put that proportion up to pay for any shortfalls in the pool?
No, they have to go through a process through the Department of Infrastructure, actually. It's the Department of Infrastructure that would have to bring the order forward to Tynwald to increase the rates. And as I say, the Southern Authority will be doing that shortly.
Are you happy with the state of the swimming pools?
I've actually asked for a review of all of the pools, and we had a department policy and strategy last week on swimming pools, and obviously Paul Bridson, who heads up the NSC, he's looking into that. I do think as an island and as a government we may need to make these decisions as to how many community pools we have around the island and the national facility and come forward with the right. And, obviously people say, another report. We need to look at this around the island, what the costs are. And, if it continues in the rates, there's a Housing and Communities Board being set up now. So if these are part of communities, should they be paid for by communities?
Do you think there are too many pools on the island or enough?
I actually believe there is enough at the present time. I think there's undercapacity at certain times as well, but obviously we do use it for teaching swimming to our primary school students, etc. And I think that's really important when you live in an island and you're surrounded by water. Swimming should be something that is taught in schools, and we use all of the pools for for that purpose.
Okay, here's a message in from Steve, who said, Andy, the public are fed up with the teachers and the unions trying to hold them to ransom for RPI-linked pay rises. We're all suffering. I think the teachers and the unions need to stop moaning and get back to work and teach. To be honest, teachers should be asked to teach for a full year in 2022-23, with, I think, just 20 or 25 days annual holidays like the rest of us. That would help the children make up the time they've lost due to COVID. It might make us more inclined to support higher pay for teachers. But Steve just said, I think left-wing unions, politics has come into it, want more pay for no extra work. They don't want to live in the real world. What does the minister think?
Well, obviously, we're currently under negotiations with the unions on the current round of pay, so I can't comment any further on that. But with regards to the profession as a whole, they do have national pay scales, and the island pays them. And I think that we have to follow that. The UK this year has not given a pay award to teachers. We're currently in negotiations with our unions with regard to that. And I do feel actually as a department as a whole, we do need to do a full funding review on the finances of the department, not just teachers' pay. And some of these challenges come due to the fact that they think that there's not enough money gone into the teachers' pay pot without doing that full funding review, which has never been carried out in education. I think that's really the key important way forward.
Do we have enough teachers on the island?
Well, obviously, we have our teachers, and our head teachers are responsible for ensuring that they've got the adequate staff in their schools, and obviously then we have our supply teachers. You can never say you've got enough teachers. There's always shortages in specific subjects. And I do feel from a recruitment and retention point of view, we need to look at this radically now as to how we are going to attract people to the island.
Interesting. Two things, recruit and retain. And obviously, sometimes there's a big gap. You must have seen that at Balakamine. There are some teachers who, we persuade to come here, and they simply, for one reason or another, just don't get on with the island, don't like it, miss home, and they go. But obviously for children, for students, it's better to have retained teachers. It's better to have an even spread of teachers, ones that stay.
That's right, and I think that's got to be a priority. What's the most important things for any society? It's education, economy and your infrastructure. And I feel education is key to ensuring we've got the right people to be able to be employed in the future in the island to help with the economy. Retaining teachers, I do think previous administrations and the changes that were made to the pensions probably hasn't helped, because teachers that come to the island, if they go into the Isle of Man local system, they can only it's 5 years before they can return to the UK to be able to go back into the UK teachers' pension. So I think that really possibly has implicated things. And we do need to look at this, but recruitment and retention, I think, is a key priority for the department. We've got to be innovative and find ways.
Do you think there are too many teaching unions? Because the public, I get the feedback from listeners and the public. It just seems one teaching union will get one award, and the next ones kind of queue up outside your office and say, well, they got that, what about us? I know you can't talk about anything specifically, but just the perception that there's a constant battle with the department and the unions.
Yeah, it's collective bargaining, so obviously all of the unions are involved, but we don't only have teachers working in our schools, we have important support staff who hold the schools together. They are the glue of a school. The important part for a teacher is to be in front of the students and getting the best outcomes for the students. So, obviously it's not just teaching unions, we also have the Unite Union and the other unions for the support staff. And actually, it's a community, a school, and we need to be making sure that the whole environment is appropriate and that everybody has equal terms and conditions that are fair and affordable.
Okay, a message in from Paul and just said, could you ask Julie Edge, what's her relationship with Treasury like these days?
I've always had a good relationship with Treasury, to be fair. Certainly I was the first chairperson of Isle of Man Post Office to go to Treasury and say, we can't afford to give you this, the payment that we give you. And Treasury were really supportive to help get the post office back on track, and we successfully did that. Obviously, my job is to make sure that education has the right funding. And obviously that is something which the Chief Minister has said in his manifesto. and also as Chief Minister's manifesto, that funding of education does need to be reviewed and looked at, and Treasury will be the main part in that, we need to have them on board. But also we need to look at schools infrastructure and, strategic needs assessment. Some of our schools are old and need some work doing to them. So
is the money there for Castle Rushen?
Certainly within the Pink Book. It's the design stage is in the Pink Book. I can say, obviously there is a design there now, which there wasn't prior to me taking over, and we will be having discussions with Treasury in the next couple of months.
Could you give any timetable whatsoever when the first sod will be cut, when the first brick will be laid?
I wouldn't like to commit to that and be held to it, but my priority is we do need a new school in the south. What that school will be decided once we've got these designs and agreement from Treasury. I'd like to think it's in this administration is probably my best guess.
Okay, a note in from Ben, just from the left side. I'd like to ask, when is cannabis regulation due on the government's agenda? What's your thoughts on cannabis?
I have, personally, I have concerns about it, obviously.
Recreational or medicinal?
I think medicinal it could be acceptable to society. Having worked in a school environment and seen the impacts and effects that it can have on the young. However, the criminalisation I do struggle with, because somebody getting a criminal record for £5, I find that impacts them for the rest of their life, which when you're younger you don't realise, but getting into America, if you've got that on your record, is going to be very difficult, and it does impact people's lives. So I'm very open-minded about it. Obviously we do need a debate on it, but I have concerns.
Okay, and here's a message in just regarding let's have a look here. Why will we start work on the pools if there are no parts? Are all the parts there for the particular pools you were talking about?
Obviously, when you're doing any maintenance, and obviously with a closure, you'll come across various things. But the part that I was talking about for the pool, the automatic dosing system to make sure that water is safe for students to swim in is key. You shouldn't be opening a pool without having the appropriate equipment in place.
Okay, texts are going mad today, so I'll get through some more of those. And one in from John just said, Balakamine's got 10 mobile classrooms, which in 2022 is unacceptable. Why don't they just fill in the swimming pool and turn that into classrooms and bus the children to the NSC?
So obviously swimming lessons are only one lesson, so that's 50 minutes. So to travel to the NSC, that would be a change in curriculum. I'm assuming that's what was still in place after I'd left. And obviously swimming's an activity that can be filled in for one PE lesson rather than a double. Obviously looking at Balakamine and talking about 10 mobiles, I didn't expect to see any more than 3 when I left, and it's just gradually grown. So we have got capacity issues in the east, but it's our largest sort of catchment area. So we do need to look at this and look at both schools, St Ninians and Balakamine, and the best way forward. And
psychologically for the students going into what are in fact big caravans and going there, and let's just come back to this. Education is a non-tangible product. Nobody knows how much children are educated, because that will only come out later on in life. So it's not like counting widgets. There are exams, and we'll come on to Ofsted shortly. But so psychologically, if our schools are getting older, if swimming pools aren't working, what message does that send to children?
I think this, again, if I was a youngster in a school, you'd think lack of investment, and one of the key priorities of any government should be investment in education. It's our future, our children's future, and this is why I will be working with Treasury on a strategic needs assessment for all of our schools, all of our buildings, to make sure the investment programme going forward is there. At the minute, I'm not seeing an investment programme going forward 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and we need that. There might be a primary school that needs replacing in the next 10 years.
Okay, we're with Julie Edge, MHK, Minister for Department of Education, Sport and Culture. And if you want to raise a point, by all means, text on 166 177, email studio@manxradio.com, or call 66 1368. Let's just get a message now.
I wonder whether you can ask the question, just a general regarding the schools, that about Ofsted inspections, that we haven't had any, I think, for a while for the schools on the island, basically to look at to see how the children have developed or not developed, how the teachers are performing, or does it require anything additional for the future, and how do they have that independent view taken of each of the schools around the Isle of Man, because otherwise there may be a generation which is lacking as they come towards their working life.
Okay, thanks, David, for your question. I'm sure when you were in government yourself, you would be aware that the Ofsted inspection criteria was not carried forward. I know Balakamine did have an Ofsted inspection and the department did. However, we did have an inspection regime carried out independently. And obviously we're reviewing that at the present time and looking at quality assurance as a way forward, and independent quality assurance assessment, which will, depending on when we get the specification ready for that, it will go out to tender, and obviously any organisation will be able to come forward.
Just if words are one syllable, will there be Ofsted reports or not?
At this present time, I couldn't say whether it's Ofsted or what. Part of the BMIN's review was that quality assurance had to be put in place, and obviously that project's about to finalise, and once I see those papers and the department members, we will make a decision as the way forward. Do
you think it's good for, do parents like league tables? Do they like results? Do they like comparing schools?
I think parents really want to just see the progress of their own children and make sure that they're getting a good quality education to come out the other side of education with that vision of what they want to do. League tables, a lot of people might think that they're good and they're good for benchmarking, but the island is different. We're fully inclusive, and and that's another area with funding. We are fully inclusive. The UK's system isn't.
Okay, a message in from Crystal just said, I hope Julie's feeling better soon. Take care. The symptoms of long COVID sound like chronic fatigue syndrome, which can be life-changing. Oh, crikey. Mm. Well, we wish you well. Thanks for that,
Thank
Crystal, as well. A message in just regarding if students have to go over to the UK to gain qualifications and no guarantee of work back on the Isle of Man, it's easy to see why they stay over and get a job over there. Presumably this is teachers.
Well, I'm assuming that's talking about students going off to university.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm looking, and I'm really keen to see that we've got the right pathways in place on the island so that anybody could start studying, possibly from year 10, and the college will have a pathway that can take them through to degree. I also think we need to get employers and organisations involved. Certainly in my younger days, which is quite a long time ago, the employer contributed to your training and helped you get those qualifications, and I think we need to be doing more of that. But there's different pathways to getting degrees without going off to university, and not all of our students want to, and they would contribute to the economy if they were on island studying.
Okay, Phil, you're live with Julie Edge.
Oh, hi Andy, it's Bill. You had a good week off?
Thank you, yes.
Yes, I was on with the predecessor about School Jubilee, Murray's Road, and the infant side about changing rooms for the children doing PE. And what the answer was is now they dress for PE in the morning on a PE day, and they stay in that all day. That's the answer, because there's no changing rooms at the schools. Now, the teachers and everything else, the schools are great, don't get me wrong, but there's been no investment in them schools for years and years and years. And you can see it. There's no drama department. There's no proper PE department. There's no sort of, even when I went to school in the 70s, we had a drama teacher. We had this is at that junior level. We had proper PE teachers, and they don't seem to have, there's no music teacher.
Hi, Phil. Obviously, I wasn't aware of your previous concerns, but I have just been saying this is one of my big concerns, that we need to ensure that there's good quality of environment throughout our schools. And obviously, there's a gap there at school at Murray's Road. And, we need to do this full review and look at the infrastructure and bring a good quality environment that helps support students get the right education. And obviously, you're talking about teachers in our day. There was a music teacher or a PE teacher. That is still obviously the case within primary, but it's whether the school can actually get somebody to actually fulfil that part of the curriculum, or do they just get a teacher to make sure they've got a professional in front of the students. So we do have recruitment problems. And
they choir teacher there, and my daughter loved the choir, and then the teacher has gone to booking and they haven't got anyone. They just don't do it anymore.
Right.
It's such a shame that you can see that the schools, especially the other side, the infant side, I mean, that is like prefab building that was probably put up in the 70s, I believe, I would think so, as probably a temporary structure, more than likely. And again, it's never been developed. There's lots of land there. There's quite a lot more land down the bottom and stuff. But again, Murray's Road, the gym equipment in the hall is older than me, and I'm 58.
And obviously it's a Vic Allen building that you're talking about, and both of these schools obviously have been discussed, and previously a decision was taken about the Park Road site being a new primary school. I have concerns about that myself because it's landlocked and there's no open space. So certainly that was the direction of the previous department, but again it is something that we are looking at. And obviously I want to ensure we're providing good quality environment and education for students.
Okay, all right, Bill, thanks for calling.
Thanks a lot, cheers now.
Appreciate that. A note in, this is from Andy, who just said, will Julie vote for the Island plan?
I will vote for the Island plan purely because I think we have to have a starting point. I'm very concerned that the delivery arm of a plan is the most important in my view, and the funding of it. So I will vote for it, and then I will have to fight to ensure that we have the right funding for the education and the delivery plan going forward.
Some people have said it's a bit nebulous. It's a bit just aims rather than objectives.
Yes, there's been lots of comments about it, and I actually think we should have brought it forward with the delivery plans attached. That's my personal view. We've chosen not to do that, but hopefully they will be coming shortly.
Okay, just to reiterate, Roger dropped a note in, just said, do you think the old Park Road school site is appropriate for an additional secondary school?
I think the site's too small, to be honest, and it's in the infrastructure around there it's not great. I think that site has had many options on it. There's been a housing community area as well. Obviously, it needs looking at. I think any new school needs to have good outdoor space or opportunity for teaching outside and PE activities.
George says, hi Julie, does the department have a policy to contact Manx students upon graduation to encourage them to return to the Isle of Man? And is there a relocation package for qualified Manx professionals to possibly return to the island?
So obviously we do have contact because we do look to see where our students that we've supported with funding go. With regards to relocation, there are relocation packages certainly in place for teachers coming back to the island. Do we need to do more of it across all of our shortage skills areas? I think yes, we do.
Here's somebody who knows about this. The Western Pool says basically gas and electricity is going up. We all know that. But are all the swimming pools heated by gas?
They are, to my knowledge.
So presumably the water's heated by gas. So that's going to shoot up. Obviously, their running costs are going to go. They have to heat the place, electric heaters and what have you. So is there a time bomb ticking at the swimming pools in that inevitably with that amount of water you've got to heat it, you've got to buy gas is going up, electricity is going up. Are the swimming pools okay financially? Are they going to make it?
I think, Andy, you need to ask the independent boards that are operating them. So there's a Northern Board, the Western Board and the Southern Board. They're responsible for managing the pools, the operations of the pools and their costs going forward. Obviously, we've supported the Southern Pool with their challenges, which weren't necessarily all about energy. We've supported them, but can we continue to support these community boards out of an education budget when you've got other challenges without, we've just had no changing facilities in a primary school, so it's a fine balance as to where the support needs to go, and they are managed by the independent boards in each of the areas, and they need to come forward, and they should be forecasting forward for the costs for their future. Obviously, the subvention from the department is nearing £500,000 for the pools in the community areas.
And again, you must, having been in education, albeit on the sharp end as bursar for Balakamine, when you've now taken up this ministerial road, are you a bit miffed that you're playing catch up with a lot of these things? I mean, old buildings, worn out equipment, lack of planning. This is old stuff, isn't it?
It is. I was frustrated when I was working at Balakamine. One of the reasons I stood for election, because I could see where it was going very, very wrong. Schools manage their own environments really, really well. We had devolved financial management. We maintained Balakamine. Most people say Balakamine's a lovely environment. That's because we found ways of investing in the building. If you don't maintain, your building will deteriorate. And I was, and certainly Adrienne, the head teacher, we were for maintaining and keeping the environment good rather than let it go to pot and let's get a new build, because that takes a long time to get, as we all know.
Okay, let's go to David. You're live with Julie Edge. David.
Hi, Julie. 2 years ago, I phoned up the education department when I found out that the government was stopping funding for gas training on the island, and I was told that it was going out to tender. That was 2 years ago, and there's still no gas training on the island. So that means that any apprentice coming through the ranks now will have no gas training experience, and any tradesman who is gas safe registered cannot train on the island to renew their certificates. They've got to go across 2 years to get that in place. That is total incompetence.
Thanks for your call, David. I'm aware of this because I was appraised of it in the last couple of weeks. And one of the issues is the facilities at the UCM are not up to the current standard. So the decision of obviously to continue supporting students going off the island to appropriate facilities has been taken. So obviously that support is there for anybody that needs to get their retraining and their certification. But it is something that we need to look at going forward as to whether we need to upgrade that training facility on the island. And the figures around that are considerable.
What do you think, Dave?
Well, I got in touch with the provider who'd been doing that training on the island for 15 years when I received a letter to say they were no longer doing it. And they told me the reason they were leaving the island was nothing to do with the facility. It was the government was pulling funding.
Right, well, certainly that's not the case as far as I'm aware, because we're funding people to go off the island to do the training. So the training is still getting funded. And, I'm happy to, if you drop me an email and if you can give me any further information. But my understanding is that the facility is not fit for the current gas training.
Okay. All right, David.
Okay. Just one quick, have you had any sort of timeline? Because it's a great deal of expense for somebody to go off the island. Will you compensate them for loss of wages?
Well, certainly there is funding in place, and it does support them to go away. And obviously we know there's accommodation costs and that. So, but I am happy to discuss this further with you if you contact me, David.
Okay, I'll drop you an email.
Thanks for that. What's your email address, Julie?
It's julie.edge@gov.am.
Well, the Education, Sport and Culture Minister is on Mannin line today, live. If you want to talk, call 66 13 68, text 166 177, email studio@manxradio.com. And we'll be back with Julie Edge in a moment. As a message in just said, when are you going to talk about Onken? Well, that's next.
Dad!
Hello, son. How's things?
Great! I've been taking your advice.
That's a first.
It's true. I've started investing monthly with Shearwater ESG.
Good for you. But what's ESG?
It's a new option that lets me invest in what I care about, like our planet and sustainability. So I'm not just improving my future, but my kids too.
Maybe I should take your advice.
Make a difference with Shearwater ESG from Ramsey Crookall. For 75 years, the island's investment specialist, offering a wide range of services to make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Just hop on board with Tours Isle of Man for the best holiday you could ever plan.
All aboard for 2022, as the new Tours Isle of Man holiday brochure is out now. We've off-island tours across the British Isles and even a 7-day trip to the Netherlands, including half-board, comprehensive tour itinerary and door-to-door transport in comfort. To find out more and book, call 822 611 or visit tours.co.im.
Selling your home can be a battle, but with a new £750 fixed fee for properties up to £350,000, it's a battle CG Red will help you win. We will sell them on the beachfront, in the fields and in the streets, and charge just £750, because when it comes to giving you the best possible deal, we will never surrender.
Sell your home for just £750 with CG Red. Visit cgred.im.
Never was so much saved by so many than with CG Red.
On Agenda tonight, Rob Mercer MLC explains why he believes it's time to update the 2014 Council of Ministers strategy for offshore energy production, and Stu Peters MHK tells us why it's not. The Tynwald vote showed Stu to be in a minority of one on this matter, but is the vote reflective of public opinion? Is the science settled yet? Stu doesn't think so. Should we exploit our gas reserves? Rob doesn't think so. That's all on tonight's agenda at 6 p.m. with me, Phil Gorn, also available as a Manx Radio podcast. Fasten yourself in, it's going to be a bumpy ride.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
17 minutes to 1 with Julie Edge. Oh, while we're on that as well, where do you stand on the gas off Mackhold?
I said it at the hustings that I think that we'd be foolish not to find out if there is gas there, and obviously once we've got all of the information, that's when decisions should be reached.
Okay, and just the quick question. It was Colin who just said, could you ask Julie Edge, what is going on in Onken?
Okay, so obviously I have been vocal about this in the past. We've now seen another clerk leave Onken, and I know that the chairman did make comments with regards to I haven't been to any meetings recently. The reason I don't go to the meetings now is everything's in private. And most of the current commissioners stood on a ticket that they wanted more transparency. And I feel we do need, and I'm speaking with my golf colleagues with regards to this, we do need transparency about the latest clerk to leave. Certainly both professional people, and obviously they've come up against the commissioners and for whatever reason have departed. And to me, that cannot be all one-sided.
Well, without stick personalities and emotion out of this, there's obviously been a clash of personalities. But one would assume that people are working for the common good.
Yes, and certainly from all of the officers that I've seen in the commissioners over the years, and I used to go in regularly and meet over, various issues around the village. They're very professional, and sometimes I feel that perhaps they're not allowed to get on with the job and do the tough decisions that have to be made when you're responsible and accountable. And the boardroom certainly gets quite hostile. It has been a hostile environment. I can't say it is now because I haven't been for, probably since the election, really. However, the conduct of the commissioners is questionable, and certainly it's changed in the last sort of 12 months. Have
Onken standards gone down in terms of public facilities, civic architecture, facilities for the public? Is Onken what it was?
I don't feel it is what it was. However, we have some fantastic facilities. Onken Park, amazing, and so many people that you meet up there in the summer that they've come back over with their children because they came here when they were younger. It's a big area. There's nearly 10,000 people. It's a large settlement area.
Big budget as well.
And it's a big budget, and a lot of that goes on the staffing. But there are challenges around Onken, and I think really when government did some of the transferring of the responsibilities that DOR used to do, that's caused the problem because you've seen kickback from commissioners saying, well, we're not doing that, that's not our responsibility. And what we need is everybody to be working together to make sure all of our environments are fit and we all enjoy living in them.
Can you tell me what's going to happen to the House Drake holiday camp?
Well, certainly there's been a delayed planning. I think they've had to recently. I seen that I think was it out of time or they're reapplying. Shame we haven't got a proper holiday camp there. I had many great days doing ballroom dancing.
What would
there,
you like to see there?
Certainly, what's proposed is not really what. It's not ever going to replicate the holiday camp that was there, but you could have a fantastic tourist setting and offer in there, couldn't you?
What about millionaires' houses?
Certainly, there's a lot of them on the island.
But something's better than nothing. Would you like to see something in that big hole?
I think certainly it's been like that for how many years, though, Andy? It's like the Summerland site, isn't it?
But I mean, all that happens is, bluntly, people go and smoke weed there, and they have parties down there. So it's not a pleasant, and it used to be something of a hub. Things went on at Housedrake, and it's one of those little things that's just fallen away.
Well, certainly when the holiday cottages were built and they weren't allowed to be sold, however, they are getting sold now on the open market. That was done as a holiday cottage area, and you've got the Great Graddle Railway. You know, there is a lot of activity down there. What would I like to see? I'd prefer to see a lot more of the sort of holiday cottage type there rather than one or two big houses looking out to sea.
OK, note in from Peter. Crikey, Peter, this is a big one. Can the Minister explain why local authorities are being asked to pay more for regional pools? I never thought we'd be talking more about regional pools, but we are. Authorities in the north, south and west historically pay 2.5p rates towards the regional pools. The land for the northern pool was given by the Ramsey Commissioners for nothing. Residents in these areas have been asked to pay an additional 3.5p rate at 6p in the pound from the 1st of April this year, and also pay income tax to fund the NSC. So why don't residents in the east use their rates towards the pool? Rates are indiscriminate, says Peter. Everybody has to pay them whether they can afford to or not, whereas income tax, which funds the NSC, is means tested. So it's not fair that people in the north, south and west have to pay increasing rates to fund essential recreational facilities when they also fund the NSC and the deficit on the other pools through income tax. So instead of asking residents in these areas to pay more rates, why doesn't the rates contribution apply to authorities in the east?
So we are talking more about pools than educating our children today, but they are, as I've said previously, they're run by separate boards, and there hasn't been an increase in the rates for the swimming pools for years. So it's really a catch-up. Is it a big enough catch-up? Obviously, I don't know their operating costs. All I know is that education gives a subvention of nearly £500,000.
OK, Andy said, hello, can you clarify what government audit process is currently carried out to ensure correct enforcing of government protocols in each schools if there isn't an Ofsted? Or are the schools left to their own controls? That's concerning from a government and surely safeguarding control.
No, certainly there are internal audits carried out on all of the schools and the school funding. Obviously, secondary schools devolved financial management, and primary isn't fully devolved, but it is devolved. And there are internal audits carried out, and obviously it's scoped in line with any audit. So that's certainly in place, and it does happen.
OK, just a quick note from John, who just said, King William's College is an old building, yet there are good facilities. It's lack of maintenance on our schools, which is the problem, says John. Is that right?
I couldn't agree more, and certainly when we had our own internal education team and maintenance teams, I do feel that the maintenance was of a higher quality and it was focused on our schools because that was their responsibility. But unfortunately, when we did the centralisation in 2014, all of that workforce moved to the Department of Infrastructure.
As an ex-teacher, says Sue, I would say schools are neglected because the government believes adult workplaces come before children's and children will make do. When I was teaching in a primary school, the teachers used to paint their own mobile classrooms during the summer holidays just to give the children a decent place to spend their working days in. These were also too hot in summer and too cold in winter. Adults wouldn't put up with this.
And, you know, Sue is showing what commitment we have from teachers there, that they would go in and brighten up their classrooms. And that still does happen today. Even if you maintained that classroom and painted it, the teachers go in during the school holidays to make that environment special for the children, and they make sure they have displays on the walls and that. So, but as I've said, we do need to be looking at the environments, what the facilities are, and investment is what's required going forward. But it's going to be large millions. Money.
And of course, we've just come through COVID, or hopefully coming through COVID, which has cost us hundreds of millions of pounds. The economy has to work. And there was a note in from Ian, right? I was going to come to this, and hopefully, happily, I have now. And it's regarding the discrepancy between the poor and the rich. And he's just talking about the fact that he said the rich will always look after themselves, the rich will always get rich. But now we're looking at the lower end of society struggling with finances. As a government minister, does Julie Edge think this is the government addressing this as we move forward?
I think we could have been addressing it in the last administration a bit more than has happened. The Treasury Minister has committed to doing a full review of benefits. Do we want to be a society of people on benefits? No, I'd rather see people in work. Do we need to make sure that people will have appropriate earnings in the workplace to be able to live appropriately on the island? We've got housing challenges, we know. Rental costs are going up. Do we need regulation around all this? Yes, we probably do, to make sure that the society that we all want to live in is affordable and accessible to all. But what we all want is different. So some people might wish to have a one-bedroom or a bedsit. Other people want to have a home. So we do have to look at all of this across everything, really. With regards to the poor and the rich, we've seen it for a long time. Is that gap getting bigger? I do believe on the island it is.
And this is a rich island, isn't it? I mean, this is an affluent island. So why do you think, and people in that position, people who are struggling to pay bills, will be looking at dreading their gas bill coming in a couple of weeks' time? What can the government do about that?
Well, obviously, the world's got these challenges with gas, hasn't it? And the government has supported and given out a bit of a different winter allowance in addition to it. Is it big enough? Obviously, on our island, it's not, and we need to look at that. But with regards to society as a whole, I actually believe that, and I do have some concerns with regards to people being able to come over to work on the island, and they can get a visa to work on the island, and the actual salary they have to earn is only £20,000 to be able to do that. That's not good enough to me. If employers want to bring people to the island, we need to make sure that they're getting a salary that they can live off.
Lots more to talk about, and lots of people are asking specific questions. You must get these all the time, so I'll just run through a couple. Gary in Ramsey just said, it's the attitude of many island residents regarding politicians. That the public needs to have confidence in politicians. The electorate, the people who voted last year, want things to happen. And everybody talked about it when they were canvassing last year, transparency, levelling, equality and what have you. How can you as a politician make that happen?
I think obviously from my last term, I probably took on the poison chalice of government, as in Isle of Man Post Office. I stuck with it. I persuaded the Chief Minister to allow me to stay beyond the 2.5 years, and I did turn it around into a profitable organisation. That takes tough decisions. It takes challenges with unions. And I do believe that politicians are put in the role to actually do that job for the people. I've heard on the doorstep what people want to change. I will be fighting for that change. That's my job to do that. And certainly it's not I'm not a person that sits on Facebook saying what I'm doing every minute of the day, because that's not what I believe society wants. They want politicians that are going in there doing the best with their money.
Final question. It's an Onken one. One of the things you were talking about during your election campaign was the redevelopment of Onken Raceway. I just want a removable wooden velodrome track. The roof will be open when there's stock car racing and football, and closed while the velodrome is in place. What will happen at Onken Raceway?
Well, certainly there was opportunity to do some development, and then obviously COVID hit. We do have the Island Games coming to the island, hopefully in 2029. But I'm aware that there are new people that have taken over the raceway, and they are making a go of it. With regards to that, people in Onken don't like the noise of the raceway. And people think it could be used for other opportunities, cycling, walking. It's an enclosed environment in the centre of Onken that's safe for everybody to use, and it should be a multi-purpose.
For the uninitiated, though, I mean, Onken Raceway is a success for the people who go there. I mean, for the people who participate, and it is a long-standing, they have 12, 15 meetings per year, and it's well attended, and it is a resource for the Isle of Man. I mean, do you think Onken Raceway should stay?
If Onken Raceway stays, it's obviously the whole stadium doesn't get used throughout the winter. It does for the football club, and the ratepayers of Onken pay towards that football pitch. Does that happen in other areas of the islands? It's similar to the swimming pools, isn't it? We pay for that football pitch from our rates. I just think the facility should be open all year round and utilised for the best for our community in Onken. With regards to velodrome, I didn't mean build a big velodrome with a roof over it. The old velodrome is still there, and it could be repaired, was the view. Or just a track where people can go around safely, off the road, learn to ride a bike.
Okay, thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it. We had a couple of dozen more questions I wanted to get to, so I'll ask you, will you pop in after Easter?
Yes, certainly, anytime.
Jolly good. Thanks for being with us today. Our guest has been Julie Edge, MHK. Now, tomorrow was due to be Tim Crookall. Unfortunately, due to family circumstances, Mr. Crookall won't be with us tomorrow. He will be in a couple of weeks' time. But Open Line will be back on Mannin Line tomorrow at midday.
WINT.
With the global rising